Do you ever notice when your kids come up to you and say, Mum, come and play with me, that you feel like, oh, like you might be cleaning the kitchen bench, and when they're asking you to come and play, you just feel like playing would be the last thing you feel like doing right now. Like you'd actually prefer to clean your kitchen than go and play with your kids. And have you ever noticed or wondered why you might be feeling that way? Well, today we're going to dive into that topic and discover why we feel as young parents just like sometimes like playing with our kids is the last thing we feel like doing. I'm Kate Searle. Thank you for coming back to my channel, Find Your Treasures. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And here we'll be going into talking about topics that really help us as parents to connect with our children in order to help our children shine their light, to help them feel connected and calm and confident in the world so that they discover who they really are. So let's dive in and discover why we feel that, that kind of heaviness when our kids ask us to come and play. Okay, so remember when you were a kid and you have that feeling, just imagine it's like a Saturday morning and you woke up and you're like, I don't know, say you're like 7, 8, 9, 10, and you just feel like you had the whole day ahead of you. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to play today? And it just seemed like the days were really long and they were full of endless possibilities. Like you could play outside, you could do a setup, you could play shops, you could play libraries, you could play Barbies, you could play Lego, but you just felt like you had so much that you could do. And then do you sort of notice that after you have been in primary school and then when we move into high school, that feeling, that freedom sometimes of like, what am I going to play today? It just kind of disappears a bit. It gets diminished. And even when you think about when we move, say, from primary school to high school, there are no playgrounds anymore. Even the idea of a playground kind of isn't really in the context of high school at the moment, is it? Which I hope it will be in the future. But it's that kind of idea that once you've moved from primary school to high school, the idea of play just kind of disappears a little bit. And then we're studying hard in high school. The word hard comes into lots of things. So, you've got to be focused. You're thinking about what you want to do when you grow up, and you've really got to work hard to do it. And then you might go into university, and again, there's this emphasis on studying hard, focusing, working hard at your studies. And the word fun just seems to kind of disappear. It's like it doesn't really have a place in high school or at university. Or if we are having fun, it's kind of rare, and we might be feeling like when we are having fun, say in a lecture or a lab at uni, that you're probably like going off point, like you're, I don't know, distracting everyone, or the idea of having fun doesn't seem to have any value anymore. And then you only have to take another step into the workplace and look around, and everyone's seated in their chairs at their cubicles in front of their computer. And again, they're all working hard. It's this idea that hard work pays off. Everyone's very serious. The idea of fun at work is pretty much non-existent, except for maybe, like one day if you have like a team building day at the end of the year. And we kind of see that when we move from, primary school into high school to university into the workplace, there's just this real programming and conditioning on us that fun doesn't have a place anymore. Fun doesn't have value. There's no purpose to fun. And instead, there's this real emphasis on working hard and doing hard work. And even when you think of it like that and you hear those words like hard work, study hard, work hard, you think, who created the idea that it has to be hard? Why can't any of that be fun? And so, with that in mind, when you become a mum or a dad and you're a young parent and you've had your children, you've navigated the baby years, you've survived the baby years, and then your children are toddling around and they're walking, they're starting to talk to you, and you're noticing that they want to play all the time, every day. That's what they want to do when they wake up in the morning. What are we going to play today? And you can start to see why, as a young parent, play has just really been this non-existent thing for you for so many years. And you've actually been programmed through high school, through uni, through the workplace to really put fun aside. There's no place for fun anymore. And that's why, as young parents, we can often feel that disconnect with our children because we've spent so long in our left logical brain and we've been focused on working hard. We've been doing hard work at school, at uni, in the office. We've been doing budgets. We've been meeting deadlines. We're trying to climb the corporate ladder. All of this stuff happening in our left logical brain. And then when we have our beautiful little children around us asking us to play and have fun with them each day, we feel kind of disconnected. Like we feel like, I don't remember how. And at first, you don't even kind of realize that you don't remember how. It just might be feeling like a drain on you, like you just feel exhausted, or you feel like, you're looking after them, you're making their food, you're cleaning the house. How is it possible that you're meant to also sit down and have fun playing? I certainly felt this way when I became a young mum. And because I was working as a geologist at the time when I had my children, I just finished my law degree, I was spending a lot of time in my left logical brain. And then when I started noticing that play is their language, I realized, oh, okay, this is how they speak. They speak and learn and experience life through play. I have to kind of join them speaking their language, join them on their level through play. And this kind of realization came to me, and it also drew on this really great teaching that I'll share with you, which was a bit of a secret, I feel like, to me, of understanding how to relate not only to our children and how to connect with them, but also with your husband, at home, your family. So it's all about your value system. And we learnt this, my husband and I, from a really wise guy called Dr. John Demartini. And you can find him, he's on YouTube. He's written some really great books. And when we first got married many years ago, we went with a friend to watch him talk in Perth in Western Australia. And I was really amazed by this concept that he was sharing about your value system and how when you understand each other's value system, that becomes your basis for connecting with them and communicating with them. So, for example, if I think of my husband, at the time, his value system was sport, was watching the football. And so for me to connect with him in the most amazing way, the best way, to feel really connected, then it would be a great idea for me to go and watch a football game with him, which we would do. And I knew in those moments, I'm speaking in his value system. Nowadays, he's really into his fitness. He's got amazing shape and he works out in the gym all the time. So nowadays, if I want to connect with him and I want to speak in his value system, I would go and do a workout with him, or we might go for a walk together, but fitness has a big component to it. For me, now as a mum, if my husband wants to connect with me, he knows my value systems being out in nature and also going out for a really nice brunch or a really nice lunch. So by combining, maybe a walk in nature together, spending time in nature and like a nice cafe or restaurant, he knows he's kind of talking in my value system. So this idea that John Demartini explains really well about your value system, when we have our children and become parents, this is almost like the secret to understanding how to connect with our children, how to relate to them, and it's play. So our children's value system, if you ask any little kid what they would want to do each day, I bet you the word play comes into it. They will want to play a game. The questions will be, Mum, come and play with me, or what are we going to play? What are we going to play next? And so our role as parents, when we kind of, change from just being an adult, focused on our own, interests and value systems and what we're interested in exploring in the world and growing, then when we become parents, it's really this invitation back into our own playfulness and finding what's inside you that makes you feel playful and fun. And at the start, you're going to feel a lot of resistance. And it's because of that programming, that conditioning. You spent so long working hard, studying hard, taking everything very seriously. And the idea that now to connect with your young children, you get to be playful and fun is a bit of a shift. You're coming from your left logical over into your right creative brain. And it's going to feel a bit funny. So you kind of ease yourself into it. But I'm going to share some little stories that I've experienced and that a friend's experienced to help you, give you some ideas of how play can be simple and really fun, and that you get to enjoy it too. Okay, I'm going to share two sort of games or things that I ended up finding fun that I let myself, enjoy as a young mum. And one of them, my daughter made up all these games. I kind of just followed her lead. She would have been about, say, 4 at the time, and my little son was about 2. So he was joining in and toddling along and playing with us. And she would made up this magical adventure where she literally had keys, and she got some of our spare keys. She'd go hide them in different parts of the house, and each sort of area where she'd hidden the key had this elaborate setup. Like it was like its own little wonderland, and she'd put chairs and fabric, material, and hide this key. And then she would make a little cubby house for her and one for my son as well, for him to live in. And that was their homes. And then I had to be the evil witch. So she wanted me to come and basically scare them. And they were trying to get these keys all the time. And I'd come in and scare them. And at the start, I was thinking, oh my God, like I don't want to scare my kids. And then I got into character. I found a black dress that I had in the wardrobe. I had a witch's hat from our Halloween costumes. I ended up, going all out with my makeup. I think I let them help a little bit. They enjoy doing my eyeshadow. And then I'd get really into character and be this scary witch and come in and like scare them. They called it witchy woo. And I would come in and scare them just from trying to get this key all the time. It didn't have to sort of make sense or have any purpose or meaning, but they would scream and laugh, and we were all just having, a wonderful time. And another game that we would do, we play often, which actually features in one of my treasure hunt games, which you can check out on my website after the video if you'd like. It's www.findyourtreasures.com, and you'll find my range of children's books and games. And one of my games is the Mermaid Treasure game. And you'll solve the clues to find your treasure, and then it prompts you, it leads you to some key cards. And the idea of the key card is that it's helping to unlock your playfulness, your creativity, and your children's. So it leads you to creative prompts, little imaginary play games that you can play together. And one of them is based on a game that we'd play often, where my daughter, again, she would have been, say, like 5, my son was about 3, and she would dress up in all of her mermaid outfit. She'd have her tail and all her jewels. She'd build a cubby in the lounge room, which was the mermaid grotto. She'd get in there, she'd have like, stuffed teddies that were like sea creature teddies in there with her. And then my son would get into his little pirate costume with his little pirate hat on, and he'd sit in the washing basket, and that was his ship. So we kind of plonk him there as well in the lounge room. And they were playing mermaids and pirates. And the game that they were making up was just basically, they were sailing around the sea, or she'd come out swimming and he'd sort of discover her. And then I realised, like, how am I joining in on this? Because that's the thing that as a young parent, it's not about the stuff we see on Instagram. It's not about these perfect setups where you have these pristine houses, or a lot of the play setups might be all elaborately set out and beautiful for the children, but they don't show the mess, which is really the reality of it. And I think you've got to allow yourself, like we all want a tidy home, but allow yourself to get, for things to get messy while you're having fun. You can always clean it up later. So I would play in that mermaid grotto game. I would dress up and be Mother Nature, and I'd put on this beautiful orange dress that I have, which reminds me of like tropical islands. And then I'd have my music, Spotify, and I'd play nature songs. So the idea would be that when they were in their little grotto and in their ship, it'd just be calm, soothing music. So I'd just play nature, beautiful, bird song sounds. And then they'd venture out onto the sea and, swimming and sailing. And then I'd play stormy music, and you can find really cool music where it's like thunderstorms and lightning and rain. And they'd scream, and they'd quickly have to go back into their ship and into their grotto and hide from the storm. And I had a lot of fun changing the season. So I'd waft in, being Mother Nature, and I'd be like, it's spring or it's summer, and now there's a storm, and quick, go back. And I'd make it snow. I'd put a beanie on and a scarf. So you can end up having a lot of fun when you let yourself, be playful and fun, and realize this is actually how you're connecting with your child, your children. And another really great story that I wanted to share with you is a friend of mine, their grandparents. And whenever their grandchildren come over to stay, the grandfather, he has a cute different name that he calls himself, and he pretends to be a French waiter. And I just think it's absolutely fabulous. So in the morning, he goes and asks for their breakfast orders, but everything is done in a French accent. And then he carries his character on into the kitchen and he's cooking as a French waiter, and then he's serving it up. And I think the French waiter has a name, I can't remember it. But I remember hearing that story when they told it to me, and I thought that's just fabulous because it's a way that you can find what lights you up to be playful. You don't have to, it's not prescriptive, there's no rules here. You're allowed to be silly, you are allowed to have fun. Think of any character that you want to be and then go into that role. And I guarantee you, your children are not going to not like it. They're going to love it. They're going to be laughing with you. And there's nothing better in the end to feel connected is that you've had, moments together where you're laughing, you've got really good eye contact with them, and you just both, you all feel sort of fulfilled. You feel like, yes, we made some magical moments and we've had a laugh together, and that's connection. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope this helps. I hope it helps you find your playfulness so that you can feel connected to your children. And here is my Mermaid Treasure game that I love to show you because the artwork is so beautiful and it's full of treasures. So it's got clue cards and gemstones, which are the treasures, affirmation cards, and these magical key cards, which are the prompts that help you find your inner spark, your creativity and your playfulness. And you can find them on my website. So I hope you enjoy and have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.